has won the Indianapolis 500.
Al had finally managed to move the business out of his home. His new quarters were in Superior, Wisconsin, just across the St. Louis Bay from his old Raleigh Street neighborhood.
What he started with was a little dinky building, and he started blending oil over there.
And he also had his first office was there, and it was inside the brick building, and it was very, very austere. Really nothing, an old desk.
I remember his first Addy machine. He said, "Look at this Addy machine." And I says, "Al," I said, "you know that those old Addy machines don't even subtract?" He says, "I don't want anything to subtract."
Al's optimism never wavered. No matter how small, austere, or outdated, he counted each step forward as a success. This included his acquisition of a brutish vehicle he affectionately dubbed Big Red.
Big Red is Al's first semi-truck that he would haul oil with. It's a Mack truck, and it has no air conditioning. It has no power steering. He refers to it as a man killer.
This is a big truck with a big steering, no power steering. I mean, this truck is not easy to drive.
Turn! Can you imagine driving a semi without power steering? I mean, it's impossible.
And I think to him, it's a symbol of his success and how he struggled. That truck was there from the beginning, and it's still there, and he holds it dear to his heart.
To successfully market a motor oil, there are two sets of 3 letters that mean more than all the racing testimonials on Earth. API is the acronym for the American Petroleum Institute. SAE stands for the Society of Automotive Engineers. These letters can only be applied to products officially certified through rigorous testing to have met or exceeded the performance standards of these official agencies. In 1972, AMSOIL became the first 100% synthetic motor oil to earn these qualifications.
When you build an engine oil, you must meet all the criteria that has been put out by the Society of Automotive Engineers, okay, American Petroleum Institute. Your product has to meet all of the criteria.
The happiest day for me was when Al spent the money, and he spent a lot of money to go down to San Antonio and get the SAE rating on AMSOIL. And that was, to me, was when it became really no longer a research project, but you had a product on the market, and it was off and running.
And yet, even with the legitimacy afforded by the official certifications, Al wasn't pulling any punches. His label trumpeted AMSOIL's extended drain interval, the recommendation for changing oil, as an astonishing 1 year or 25,000 miles. Al was placing AMSOIL far above the industry standards. He was proclaiming the highest quality motor oil on the market.
I think that's one of the best things about Amatuzio. Amatuzio will not go into the marketplace with a product that is not the highest quality that he can possibly produce.
One thing I can say about AMSOIL products with the greatest authority is that they are designed with the finest and the most recent technology that is available worldwide.
Another watershed moment for AMSOIL occurred in December 1972. It had nothing to do with Al, or racing, or industry certification. In fact, it happened during an unassuming and unrelated event. A family Christmas in Wichita, Kansas.
My sister lived in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and as families do, we get together at Christmas time. So my sister came from Minneapolis to Wichita, Kansas, to my parents' house. And when my sister arrived, she said they came out of Minneapolis just ahead of a storm, and it was 40 below zero. And I said, "How do you ever start your car when it's 40 below zero?" And my brother-in-law said, "We found a new product that you can start your car in the wintertime, and it's called AMSOIL. Well, my husband, Mr. Green, was a mechanic, and his ears went like this, and he said, "Could you send me some information on that product?"
Early in the synthetic lubricant business, there was a high resistance to the use of that lubricant, those lubricants, primarily based on price.
At that time, Al was still selling in a conventional way, trying to sell in a conventional way, lining up dealers, but not direct sale dealers, basically retail stores.
And he found that he'd grown sales. He was doing a couple $100,000 worth of sales, but he wasn't getting where he needed to go. And the oil was sitting on the shelf, and it wasn't selling readily. It was 5 or 6 times the price of regular petroleum oil at the time. But he knew that every time he got a hold of somebody and was able to tell them why they should use this $6 cord oil, he was usually able to turn them into a customer.
By the spring of 1973, Shirley Green's husband had test-driven some AMSOIL of his own, and his enthusiasm about the impressive but largely unknown product piqued Shirley's interest. She was an enterprising woman with experience in a type of direct sales known as multi-level marketing, or MLM, a method of selling products person to person rather than on a store shelf. To her, AMSOIL and MLM seemed like a match made in heaven. Shirley phoned up Al.
And I asked him when I talked to him, "How is it marketed?" And he said, "What do you have in mind?" Which told me he didn't have a marketing plan. And I tried to explain multi-level marketing to Al Amatuzio over the phone. And if you've never done that, that was fun.
Shirley's initiative and ability to think outside the box appealed to Al, and her ideas intrigued him. Al invited the Greens to meet with him in person to discuss the details of multi-level marketing.
Originally, Al was selling a product on the shelf, and he refers to it as growing dust. You can't tell a story. Multi-level marketing allows individuals to tell a story.
And so I tried to explain to him, when people don't have a lot of money to do national advertising and so forth, that friend telling friend and neighbor telling neighbor is a way to promote a product.
He had talked over the years about Mason shoes, that he'd like to sell his oil like Mason shoes were being sold, which is a direct sales approach. And this gal really got his interest.
He learned that this one-on-one sales, where you explain the benefits of the product, it might take 3, 4, or 5 minutes to get it across, but an individual could sell this product, especially once they've used it and they strongly believe in it.
As a born promoter, Al instinctively understood the potential of direct sales. He loved the concept of using grassroots enthusiasm to sell his products. The more they talked, the more Shirley convinced him that her way of doing business had real merit.
And then I said something very profound. All the oil is paid for before it's ever shipped. And then he really lit up, you know. But he didn't say yes or no that night. It was about 3 days later that he said, "I've decided to go with your plan, go to work on it."
Al was taking a big gamble, but so was Shirley Green. Creating a brand new MLM marketing plan for AMSOIL would tax her resources, but she knew the venture was based on a highly credible, quality product, and she admired the fortitude of Al Amatuzio.
When I first met Al Amatuzio, I could see the determination that he had. He had already been through a lot to get his product to where it was. And he hadn't given up, you know. He had everything mortgaged, I guess, except his kids, and that's what he told me. And he was determined that this was going to fly. And I could see that in him. I also thought about, you know, you don't get to be a lieutenant colonel without some kind of determination. And I thought, well, I'll chase his rainbow with him.
Others worried that Al was chasing down the wrong road. Few people had ever heard of multi-level marketing, and those that had sometimes associated it with a few get-rich-quick companies that had abused the concept. As a result, MLM tended to have a tarnished reputation, or none at all.
I remember one day I was at home on a Saturday mowing the lawn, and I got a call from Al, and this gal Shirley Green had come up to visit him from Kansas, and they were hammering out a multi-level marketing plan. I didn't even know what multi-level was. I went over there and I thought this Shirley Green was out of her mind. I didn't think this was going to work at all. It just seemed like a scheme to me. But Albert saw.
From their very first conversation, Al and Shirley had recognized honesty and integrity in one another. And the AMSOIL marketing plan was a reflection of these values. Under the plan, an AMSOIL dealer would have an opportunity to build a legitimate sales organization based on a quality product. Shirley also drew upon past experiences in order to craft the best plan possible.
I had worked several multi-level businesses. I knew what I didn't like about all of them that I had worked. So the one I wrote for Al, I wrote all of that stuff out and just wrote in what I did like and what I thought would help dealers to grow.
It wasn't the kind of pyramid structure that most of the multi-level marketing companies did. This was truly multi-level because the harder you worked, the higher you grew. There was no such thing as the top of the pyramid where somebody sat there who did nothing. As long as he had your signature, you could never grow beyond him. That isn't the concept of AMSOIL. AMSOIL gives the person the ability to grow as far as he wants to.
On July 7, 1973, Al flew to Kansas in an F-101 to host the very first AMSOIL dealer meeting. The turnout was large and enthusiastic. Soon, Shirley and the other dealers would hit the road and begin selling the product. But even Al, the great optimist, was unprepared for what happened next.
When they set up the multi-level part of it, and I put together some literature for a sales kit and all the rest of it, and they actually did it. It just exploded. It just plain exploded. The fuse was lit and it was going. It was no time at all, and they were doing $4 million worth of business, and I mean they couldn't make the oil fast enough, and literally couldn't make the oil fast enough.
Al was not geared up to take care of the explosion that we were causing because we were all over the place.
From that point on, I think all he could do was hold on to the reins and try to cope with the growth.
We would only let people have 1 or 2 cases because we had other people to see.
And they would use it, they would embrace it, and they would turn around and tell the story to somebody else, and they would sell it.
He was expanding his blending facilities.
There's plants to build and production lines.
We just kept promoting.
Tanks to build, infrastructure.
There was a lot of energy. The people who were working for the company had a lot of energy. The AMSOIL dealers had a lot of energy, and all this energy it's very, very catchy. It's contagious.
And we couldn't print enough literature for him. It was just crazy.
With the dealers, he grew. He doubled the first year. He doubled the second year. I think he went through 6 years where he doubled sales.
Boy, was I wrong. Unreal.